time, I'd like to invite all of you to please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on the agenda for the council this evening is approval.
I guess, in my opinion, I think it's kind of ineffective, burdensome regulation that I just can't support. Although I'm not in favor of smoking, and I know it's a bad thing, I just can't see as a city that we should change anything.
Mayor, I think there's going to be further action on this in the state legislature for next year, and because of that, I would make a motion that we take no action tonight and we leave our ordinance as is, and just see what happens statewide with this, and so we can have the entire state involved. Then you could enforce it, and when the state's telling us that they're lowering the taxes on tobacco and stuff, it doesn't help anything on this situation. I just think until we can get everybody in the state on the same page, it's really would be tough. So I would make a motion that we take no action tonight and we leave our ordinance the way it is.
I would second that.
Okay, there's been a motion that's been made and seconded that we do not give first reading to this ordinance this evening, correct? Okay. Discussion on the motion that's on the table. Does anyone have any feelings one way or the other on just not adopting it tonight at all?
I also agree with Kevin, who stood up for a local business. We're obviously penalizing local businesses and encouraging them to, any of these people that have the ability to go out and purchase these products, they can go 5 minutes away. And so we are penalizing local businesses by passing this ordinance, and I really feel like it should be dealt with on a statewide level. As much as I agree with what we're trying to do here, I think this is a state statute situation for me.
Further thoughts?
Dan,
Dan, go ahead.
I guess looking around, Detroit Lakes has been a leader in the area. It's been a leader in the state. It's a great place to live. I grew up here, came back here after college. I always thought that this is a great place to live, and we've been leaders in just about everything that we've done. And by taking the back seat and taking the easy way out and saying the state should do this, I guess I can't get behind that sort of mentality. I think we could be the source of the domino effect, like Mr. Frank said. We can start that motion to go for the state level to have a little bit more power going into the legislative session this coming season. They took the action of reducing taxes on cigarettes. One of the couple of things that I've seen has the biggest impact on people smoking is taxes or price of the cigarettes and raising the age. And that comes right out of the Royal College of Physicians study that they put together. I've sat down and read that on Saturday afternoon, 2.5 hours of my life that I probably won't get back, but it was a wonderful piece of literature. It argued both sides, and you can make any argument out of that document, and it does have a lot of information in there, and it talks about nicotine, and it talks about the effects of it, and everything about tobacco and vaping, and you can argue pretty much anything out of there. So my point is, if not us, who, and if not now, when?
Ron?
Well, the only thing on that, Dan, the three things you mentioned is price, taxes, and enforcement on that. It all has to come from the state legislature, and that's where it's got to start, so we can make any of this thing to happen. And I'm going to say that one thing that has really kind of bothered me more than anything else, I can't stand lobbyists, and this group has lobbied us so hard and pressed us on this from everybody, from all these outsiders. I would have felt a lot better if it was done completely inside the city of Detroit Lakes with our own city people. And we've had so many people from outside and do the hard press, and that does not win me over on anything. And until we can get some help from the state of Minnesota on this, this is just something that it's an ordinance that has no teeth, and it's gonna be very tough to enforce. And I talked to the chief about it. It's a tough one, so I've got a motion on the table, and I think you should vote for it.
Bruce?
Well, I think Mr. Jolson did a nice job of explaining a little bit where I'm at. This goes against all my libertarian leanings to basically be arguing for regulation, but when people talk about we're over-regulating, remember, we don't let people drink. You know, we've got rules and regulations for all kinds of social behavior, so if you really believe in that 100%, we should be eliminating all those rules and regulations. So a little bit, where I'm at is what Dan said is, we've gone through this process, we've spent a number of months here, folks on both sides have really put a lot of effort into, and I commend them all for, you know, their passion and their work and whatever, and it's certainly not outside people. There's been a lot of folks in Detroit Lakes that have been here, so it isn't just lobbyists that are paid lobbyists from somewhere. So I guess I'm with Dan, is that, you know, I would prefer to look at this, maybe take another look at it in terms of pulling the vaping and the e-cigs out. I have had a number of folks that use the product that have contacted me and told me how much it's impacted them, and so from that perspective, I realize, as Dan said, it's not 100%, but it gets us to somewhere. And my final comment, and why I asked Molly about the cigarette tax, is if we think the yahoos, and if the paper's here, please quote me, if we think the yahoos in the state legislature are gonna do a statewide elimination, or 21, we're dreaming, because those guys down there don't have any clue of what's happening out in the hinterland. So that's my comment.
Okay. Other comments? We do have a motion on the table, and the motion is not to give first reading this evening. And no matter how this vote comes out, I want to thank you all again for your politeness and your attendance, and I think everybody was very respectful. And if you don't intend on staying for the whole rest of the agenda tonight, I would ask when we're concluded with this particular matter that if you've had conversation you want to engage in, if you would take it out in the lobby or out in the parking lot so we can continue on with our proceedings. One last chance for any more comments. I'm going to call the question.
I'd ask for a roll call vote.
We'll do a roll call vote. Anybody? Okay, all in favor, and we'll go starting with Dan and around to Bruce. All in favor of the motion, and the motion again is to not give first reading. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 No.
Aye.
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 No.
So I believe the motion is
Two noes.
just 2 no's. So the motion passes, and we're not going to give first reading. Thank you again for all.
Thank you.
We also go back to 3 police officers who are lounging in the back. I'll reconvene the regular city council meeting at this time, and the next item on the agenda is to call to order a public hearing to receive comments and give consideration to the noise complaints at Zorba's at Detroit Lakes on June 4th, August 20th, and August 27th of this year. And I'll call on our city attorney, Charles Ramstead, to set the thing in motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've all been here for quite some time, so I'm going to try to rush through this in a way, but I don't want to rush too much, and so I will hopefully not take up any more time than is necessary. But to start this hearing off, I thought it would be appropriate to just do a little summary of the Chapter 505 of the city ordinances, and that is commonly referred to as our noise ordinance. And just a little bit of a background. I mean, basically what your noise ordinance does is it prohibits what is defined in the ordinance as a noise disturbance. A noise disturbance is any sound or noise that unreasonably disturbs the peace, quiet, or repose of any person. So any person. The ordinance goes on and gives a couple of more narrow definitions of that, and it goes on to say that a noise disturbance in between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., okay, so 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. is noise of such a volume to be clearly audible at a distance of 50 feet from the source, so only 50 feet. And that's a fairly restrictive distance, if you think about it. 50 feet isn't very far away. And because of that fairly restrictive definition of noise disturbance, at least between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., the ordinance provides an exception, a specific exception, for licensed on-sale liquor businesses. So holders of on-sale liquor licenses. And that exception allows the holder of an on-sale liquor license to exceed the noise limits, so in other words, to exceed that clearly audible at 50 feet so from the source standard, between the hours of 10 a.m., so 10 in the morning, to 12 a.m., so 12 midnight, on select days, and the days essentially have to be between Memorial Day and Labor Day, by obtaining a noise permit from the city, actually from the city council. And that noise permit allows noise during those hours, provided that the noise is not clearly audible in excess of 500 feet from where the noise is prohibited or is produced. So from 10 a.m. to 12 a.m., if you're the holder of a noise permit, which is only for licensed on-sale liquor businesses, you can produce noise that is clearly audible at 50 feet and in excess of 50 feet, provided that the noise is not clearly audible at 500 feet. So on April 20th, you're looking up on the screen, and this should also appear on your tablets. Zorba's of Detroit Lakes Incorporated, operating the Zorba's restaurant at 402 West Lake Drive in Detroit Lakes, obtained a noise permit from the city of Detroit Lakes. And that noise permit, again, permits them to exceed the 50-foot standard from 10 a.m. till 12 midnight on the selected dates, and the dates are listed up on there, starting in May 26th, essentially every weekend from Labor Day, from Memorial Day weekend through Labor Day weekend. And we made a condition in the last permit where the overhead doors must be closed by 10 p.m. And what we're talking about there is that on the north side of the new addition and the east side of the new addition, there are what I will call garage doors, doors that come from overhead. There was that restriction came about because at the time that the variance was obtained to build the structure, the council allowed the doors in on condition that they be closed after 10 p.m. And so to make that clear, that was put into the noise permit. So 500 feet from the source of the noise, the complaints in this case relate to 402 West Lake Drive, the Zorba's restaurant. I should have up on the screen, hopefully with any luck, a map. Let's see if I get that. Nope, there we go. There we go. I don't know if you can single that down a little bit more, but essentially that is a 500-foot circle from where the stage is in the Zorba's restaurant. Just to orient you, you are looking at it with north on the upper part of it. Summit Avenue is the main vertical street there. Westlake Drive is east to west horizontally on the bottom. And Peoples Park is the area that would be on the upper left-hand corner. I'm going to call up now, relating to the specific complaints that the city received, Officer Wayne Strebel from the Detroit Lakes Police Department and also Officer Joe Stephens. Can you guys come forward, please? And one thing I want to tell you both is this is not in court, and so we're not going to be quite so formal as we would if we were doing some testimony up in front of a judge, all right? All right, so as long as you got that.
Talk back to him.
Excuse me. Okay, so I'm going to start with Officer Strebel, specifically relating to a complaint that was received by the Detroit Lakes Police Department at about 1:15 on June 4th of 2017. First of all, identify yourself, please.
Officer Wayne Strebel, DLPD.
And
I work nights.
for the city, right?
Yep, for the
And
city.
were you working on June 4th?
I was.
All right. And did the city get a noise complaint?
We did.
And what time was the noise complaint?
01:15 hours.
So
1
what
in
is
the morning.
1 in the morning? Okay. Was it exactly 1 in the morning?
1:15 in the morning.
All right, I got that. All right. So that's after 12 a.m.
Yes, it is.
All right. And what did the complaint rate relate to the Zorba's restaurant?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Why don't you tell the council what you did to investigate that complaint?
What I normally do is I come in within the 500 feet radius and I purposely park, which I did this time at the arena, or this time I parked over on Westlake Drive and Rossman Avenue, beyond the 500 feet mark. I exited my car and I could clearly hear audible sound, much louder than just a muffle. So I walked on foot, proceeded to investigate.
And just to clarify, where you were at Rossman and Westlake Drive, I don't know if the map is still up there. Stacy, could you put the map back up?
It'd be on the lower left side of the map.
Is it outside of the 500
Yes,
foot
it
circle?
is.
All right, go on.
So I walked up along Westlake Drive, and my dealings with the situation is to simply talk to management. I spoke to Tate on that encounter.
Mr. Jansen, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
And reminded him of our 2200 and midnight requirements. Tate was polite, and he turned down the sound.
And was there any doubt in your mind at the time that you were at Rossman and Westlake Drive that the source of this sound was from the Zorba's restaurant at 402 Westlake Drive?
There was no doubt.
And in fact, didn't you actually go from that place and walk towards the building?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you could clearly hear the noise as you walked from the building, or from Westlake Drive and Rossman all the way to the building?
It became audibly louder as I walked towards Zorba's, yes.
As a result of that noise complaint, the report that will show up on your tablets was produced by Officer Strebel, and you can certainly refer to that if you wish to. The liquor committee, decided that it would be a good idea to do a letter to Zorba's just to make it sure that everybody understood what the ordinance says. So up on your tablets and up on the screen is a letter dated June 21st. And you're certainly free to refer to that. Essentially, that is a letter from the city administrator to Zorba's of Detroit Lakes, Inc., explaining basically how the noise ordinance work, and essentially what I've talked to you about today, which is that you've got this noise permit exception, but the noise permit exception only works for producing that excess noise up until midnight. And the letter is a request to Zorba's to please comply with the noise ordinance, clarifying if there was any misunderstanding with the way the ordinance is. Next, I'm going to turn to August 20th of 2012, and that's your job. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Officer Joe Stephens, Detroit Lakes Police Department, worked for the city of Detroit Lakes, and I was working the night of in question.
All right, so you were working on August 20th of 2017.
Correct.
And did you have a complaint or receive a complaint of some noise from Zorbas at about 12:30 a.m.?
I did, yeah. The dispatch notified us of a noise complaint down at Zorba's. I was the one who took the call, and then proceeded down to speak with the complainant at their residence, which was within the 500-foot bubble, essentially, from Zorba's. I got there about 1:45.
So to be clear, you went first to the complainant and talked to them, and that complainant lives or was located within less than 500 feet.
Correct, yeah. What he estimated at was 100 feet from Zorba's. I would probably assume it was anywhere between 75 and 100 feet from Zorba's.
So at that distance, at 12:30 a.m. on August 20th, was the sound emanating from 402 Westlake Drive, the Zorba's restaurant, clearly audible?
Yes, it was.
And what did you do after that?
Just to give Zorba's the benefit of doubt, I figured I would also go out past the 500-foot mark to a couple locations just to see if it was excessive, even though it was already in violation of the noise ordinance. So I went, first location was to People Street and Rossman Avenue, which is just outside the 500-foot zone.
Stacy, can we pull the map up again? Okay, so where about on the map? You were on,
Kind of right by the entrance to the arena where People Street crosses and connects up to Rossman on the
okay,
left side of
and
the...
People Street is the street that's just on the north side of Zorba's?
Yep.
And the south side of the park?
Kind of radius is the circle.
Okay, so that was also clearly outside of the 500-foot circle, is that
Correct.
correct? Okay, go on.
From there, I was able to clearly hear the band playing and the patrons inside of Zorba singing to it, to a specific actual song that I recognized.
All right, so this was a song that you knew,
Correct.
and you knew what the lyrics were gonna be?
Yep, because I could hear it. And
All right,
Have you seen
do you wanna sing? No. Okay, go on.
after that, then I went up to the north side of People's Park, which is again outside the zone, and from there I could still clearly hear the audible noise from Zorba's with the band there. And then I went to third location, which is on the opposite side of the east side of Summit Avenue, where we in the past have had numerous complaints before all this took place.
And what about that? Was it clearly audible at that distance?
It was significantly less. You could still hear that music was being played, but it wasn't clearly audible at that point. And I believe that is more so because of the overhead doors being closed on that kind of side of the building.
Because that's on the east side of the building or the north side of the building.
Correct.
All right. And so what did you do then?
I contacted Mr. Jansen, told him about the ordinance, the violation of the noise ordinance, and he informed me that the band was going to be done in about 15 minutes, but he would go and talk to them and have them quiet it down.
Okay, so just from a timing standpoint on this one, you received a call at 12:30. Is that correct? And you did your own little investigation, and you did that before you went to talk to Mr. Jansen?
Correct.
Okay, and so that took about 15 minutes?
It took maybe 5-10 minutes.
Okay, so when you went to talk to Mr. Jansen, you would estimate what the time was, or do you know what the time was?
It was close to probably 1:45, around there.
All right. And he told you that they would turn the band down?
Essentially at 1 o'clock.
At 1 o'clock. Did you ask him to turn the band down
No,
immediately?
well, I should say, I asked, he was gonna turn it down, or have him turn it down, but he informed me that the band would be done at 1 o'clock.
Okay, so when did the band turn down?
After I spoke with him, I went to the arena parking lot, which is even farther outside the bubble, where I could still hear the music playing. It was a little less audible, and typed my report, and then it wasn't until about 1 o'clock that the music finally quieted down at that point.
So even though you told him at 12:45 about the situation, the music didn't get quieted until 1?
Correct.
Is there any doubt in your mind that the sound that you were hearing came from 402 Westlake Drive, Zorba's Restaurant?
No doubt.
I'm going to turn to August 27th. Again, we don't have to go through introductions for you, Officer Strebel, but was there a noise complaint that you investigated on August 27th of 2017?
Yes, there was.
And about what time was that?
It looks like 0023 hours.
So that would be 12:23 a.m.?
Yep.
So after 12 a.m., is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And was it a complaint regarding noise at Zorbas?
Yes.
What did you do to investigate it?
I, again, as I normally do, I stopped my squad car and exited the vehicle at beyond the 500 radius, which was this time the arena parking lot.
Okay, so again, on the map, that would be more than 500 feet away from
Yes.
Zorbas. Okay, go on.
Clearly heard was drums, live music, so it would be drums with loud singing along with, which I did not recognize the song, but I knew it to be live music with patrons singing along.
That's not an age-related thing or anything? No, okay. All right, so you heard the sound.
Yes, I did.
Is there any doubt that in your mind that it came from 402 Westlake Drive, the
No
Zorbas
doubt.
restaurant? What did you do in response to that?
So, as normal, this time, to save some time, I drove to the front. I don't know if I had pressing issues, but I just drove right to the front of Zorbas and asked for Mr. Jensen to speak with him. I was informed he was working, and I waited after a few minutes. Another gentleman that I did not know by the name of Scott walked out and greeted me. I conversed with Scott, reminded him of the obvious 10 o'clock and midnight agreement, and I think he made some slight reference to a neighbor that was having recent issue. I negated that whole fact and still reminded him that there are the times are the times. He said he would immediately turn it down. I drove to the back of Zorbas, beyond the 50 feet, just beyond the 50 feet, and the music was turned down.
Thank you, Officer Stephenson Strebel. Please stick around in case any members of the council have any other follow-up questions for you. Okay?
Can I add just one observation that I made through this whole thing?
Sure.
I have never been on the west side of Zorbas. I walked up to the fence to take a peek, and I was kind of curious as to why it's so loud to the west. And I discovered that there's bifold doors that were wide open from the floor to the soffit. Of course, every time I had a noise complaint, they were complying with the overhead doors being closed on the east side of the building and the north side. But I was surprised to see these large bifold doors, which then to me explained why there's such direct sound coming to the west. So,
All right, thank you.
all right. Thank you.
Just for the record now, your tablet will show, and up on the screens we can put, there was as a response to these complaints and the investigations, we provided a notice to Zorbas of Detroit Lakes dated August 31st, notifying them that this hearing would be held today. Your packet will also show an affidavit of mailing, which verifies that the notice of that hearing was mailed out to Zorbas more than 10 days in advance of this hearing. The packet also will show an email letter from a concerned citizen, actually two letters from concerned citizens. One's an email dated August 29, 2017, and the other is a letter dated September 11, 2017. And finally, on your desks, I have prepared a proposed resolution, which includes findings of fact and a requested or recommended determination. There are, first of all, 3 proposed resolutions, and the reason that there are 3 is that they relate to the separate dates individually. So there is a resolution regarding the noise complaint on June 4th, a resolution regarding the noise complaint on August 20th, and a resolution regarding the noise complaint on August 21st. On behalf of staff, we are asking that the council adopt the findings of fact in all three of those proposed resolutions. Actually, we're asking that the council adopt all three of those proposed resolutions. And we're asking that the council make a determination that these incidents constituted violations of the noise ordinance, i.e. constituted a noise disturbance, and also constituted a violation of the noise permit that was issued to Zorbaz on April 20th. The reason for requesting that the determination be made as to a violation is because under the existing noise ordinance, in order to take into consideration in any future applications for a noise permit, these incidents, we can only make a consideration we can only take this into consideration if the council makes a finding that this was a violation. And if there are future requests for noise permits, it's the request of staff that these incidents be able to be considered in consideration about whether any future noise permits should issue. Secondarily, we're also making a recommendation that there be a sanction imposed as a result of these noise violations. And that's a suggestion in the proposed resolutions. And the suggestion would be, and I should explain this, one of the consequences of violating the noise ordinance and the noise permit is that the council can revoke or suspend any license or permit issued from the city to the violator. So that would include the liquor license that Zorbaz of Detroit Lakes holds. The state statutes permit us to revoke or suspend based upon this violation. Our noise ordinance permits us to revoke or suspend based upon this violation. And the liquor license statute ordinance, the liquor license ordinance permits us to revoke or suspend. And so as a staff, we are suggesting that an appropriate sanction for these violations would be to suspend the 2 a.m. liquor permit. In other words, the permit that allows Zorbaz of Detroit Lakes Incorporated to sell liquor after 1 a.m. for at least 2 nights relatively soon, perhaps this coming weekend and the weekend after that. But in any case, we believe that there should be some sanction, and we should be able to make it clear that future violations could result in even more significant consequences as a result of violations of the noise ordinance. That's the end of my speech. If any of you have any questions to me, I'd be happy to field them, or to Officer Strebel or Steffens. And if none, then I will take my place back behind Alderman Sherman.
Is there anyone in the audience that has any questions or wishes to make a comment regarding the noise complaints and whatnot at Zorbaz of Detroit Lakes? Anyone? No one? Then that public hearing is closed, and I would open it up for the council for discussion or entertain a motion for whatever action you feel is appropriate. Jane?
The liquor committee did discuss this today, and I would recommend that we revoke or suspend the permit for Zorbaz of Detroit Lakes to sell intoxicating liquor on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, September 14th, 15th, and 16th from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. on each of those nights.
Is that a motion?
I would like the motion to adopt each one of those resolutions
Absolutely.
and then impose that same sanction on each resolution, so it's not doubling it up. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was the reason for the 3 days. It was a finding of fact that a violation had occurred on each of the 3 days indicated in the resolutions, and responding with a sanction of 3 days, 1 hour suspension on
Okay.
each of the 3 days.
And that's a motion.
That was a motion. So there's a finding of fact and a motion to suspend the permit.
Were you wanting to second the motion, Jay, or did you have a comment?
No, sir, I had a comment.
I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second, so go ahead.
Well, just, I like Officer Streeter's, observation that the bifold doors were open. I guess I wish I could have a comment coming from Mr. Jansen. Are the bifold doors typically open? Is that something that we could correct to possibly not have this happen anymore? Or am I allowed to address?
Sure, go ahead.
I mean, to me, it sounds like if the bifold doors were closed, that could have helped the situation immensely. So is it a possibility that on all 3 of these evenings, the bifold doors were open, thus creating this discrepancy?
Cole, do you want to?
Would there be a way for us to kind of retroactively restart this, and can I make a statement?
Sure, go ahead.
I
We won't be
appreciate
quite as strict as the last 5 years.
it. And this is, Tate and I are, we're owners, operators at Zorbas, and I just wanted everybody to know here that the ordinance is constantly on our minds. We're acutely aware of it. There's a lot of moving parts involved in our business. We're tirelessly working to adhere to it. We've been programming our post-entertainment basically the exact same way since 2009. We've been scheduling very similar bands. We've been curating them heavily. They've been playing the same times. Expectations have changed. We respect that, we understand it, and once again, we employ over 140 people. There's a lot of moving parts involved, and we are working very, very, very hard to adhere to the ordinance. But once again, the adjustment takes a little bit of time and some patience. That doesn't mean that it's any less important to us, or that we're trying to circumvent it or dismiss it at all. Tate and I probably spend 10 hours a week talking about it, and what adjustments can we make to fulfill basically what we're trying to accomplish as a business is being an attraction for a small northern Minnesota resort town. And one of those attractions is live music. We're really the only establishment in town that does it consistently. We're proud of how we do it, but we think it's an important amenity. This conversation and this summer is, unfortunately, it's going to be changing our approach dramatically to that. Once again, things change, we respect that, and we honor it. 2 things of note that we did this year is once we started learning the mechanics of it and the adjustments we need to make, we canceled 2 very, very high profile, one regional band and one national band, forfeiting the cost entirely. Because we knew that their expectations of what they would expect, what we want them to do, wouldn't meet what they want to accomplish and the vibe that they want to emphasize. So we lit $6,000 on fire. Once again, it was part of the adjustment. We understand that. It's about expectations having changed, and we want to honor that. But to suspend our license for a few days from the 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. day part is, I think it's a bit excessive considering the sacrifices that we've already made. And once again, I understand the noise ordinance is about trying to control, and we respect that, and it's about the ability to enforce. And once again, we honor that. But Tate and I we're hands-on operators. We're not some random pop-up, fly-by-night rogue operation that's trying to try to be here to win the popularity contest. Our father started the business in 1969, but we invest our blood, sweat, and tears and millions of dollars in the community, and we just hope you all take that into consideration because this is incredibly important to us, and once again, we understand the severity of it, and we're gonna, hopefully we've made all the adjustments that we need to make to include some additional internal final changes and final steps. Now to your question, Jay, that those west doors, the reason why those are open is because, and something else that Tate and I have discussed, we need to put a full heating and cooling system out there. Right now one doesn't exist. That's why those doors are open. And also they are open because thankfully, and Tate and I work hard to be a popular establishment. And hopefully you view us as an asset to the city and not a liability to the city. So we're also considering putting in a heating and cooling system out there that's going to cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars so that we can close those doors. Once again, to try to find the balance between being an attraction, creating economic activity in the city, maintaining the reinvestment and the millions of dollars in payroll that we do on a yearly basis, while being great neighbors and concerned and engaged corporate citizens. Thanks for your time.
Okay, further comments?
Well, as long as you're at the podium. So Now, remember, you're talking to an old guy that goes to bed at 10:30 now. But is it a big deal to your customers that you gotta continue to play music after midnight? I mean, is it a point where from 12 to 2 o'clock that the bands are that big a deal?
Well, we view it in several ways, Bruce. I mean, obviously, we're not just going to do something that we don't think is appealing, it's going to attract guests. But we think it's very, very important. It's not only important for Zorba's, but frankly, we think it's good for the brand building of the beach and for Detroit Lakes itself, because we certainly see a niche because very few people do it. So we want to do it. We want to do it from an approach of being considerate, but also being an attraction. So it's, I mean, that part of our day part is it's about from 11 p.m. till 2 a.m. It constitutes about 15% of our overall business.
And then I noticed that 2 of these dates were Sundays, I believe. So Sunday night is a big night for you guys?
It would be past midnight, that's why the date is, it was a Saturday evening past
Oh,
midnight.
yeah, okay, gotcha.
And and furthermore, it's our responsibility on managing the talent. We get it, but we joke periodically, and it's becoming far less funny now that you can't dictate to the talent. But we're learning which bands to bring in that we can dictate these things to, and in them exactly what we need to and make the internal adjustments that are necessary. But this is obviously I don't want to use the word humbling, because we always approach our business each and every day from a humbling perspective. But this is, I mean, I can't emphasize enough how big a deal this is to us. Not only from us wanting to do the right thing for the city, but potentially suffering these sanctions.
I have another question, Mayor.
Go ahead.
So, and this may be either for Charlie or for you, but so I understand the financial part of this. Would a sanction be the ability to limit next year if there's asking for the variance for the noise on specific dates? Would there be an example of a sanction to maybe cut those days back? Would that be a sanction?
Yes.
As opposed to not letting them sell alcohol from 1 to 2?
Yeah, I can certainly tell you that under the ordinance, the fact of a determination of a violation can be taken into consideration in the application for a subsequent noise permit, okay? So does that mean if, as they have done in the past, applied for a permit for every summer weekend, could the council decide that it didn't want to issue a permit for every weekend? Maybe not 3 or 4 or something like that. You certainly could do that based upon the finding of the violations here, because the noise ordinance specifically says that if there have been prior violations, that can be taken into consideration as to whether you're going to issue subsequent noise permits. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
So was the intent of your question to a more stiff sanction? Because I don't think that they would be, I think that they would not be in favor of that versus the current one proposed.
Well, I guess I thought it was more liberal, because I was suggesting that instead of having them close at 1 o'clock for 3 nights and not have business, that next year you pick a couple of dates that they were going to ask for the noise variance past 10 o'clock and just not do those.
To me, that sounds more severe.
It does, okay. I guess, to me, it doesn't, because you're still open, as opposed to closing at 1, but I guess I'm just looking, that's my business mind looking at, but I may be different than everybody else.
Okay, further comments?
I appreciate
Questions?
everything that you're saying, and that you guys are trying to change things and work it out, but, on this side of it, we have lots of residents that, complain to us that it's just too loud, and I know the police have gotten more phone calls than just these 3. So it's gotta be, why have an ordinance or a permit at all if there aren't gonna be any sanctions? I guess it's a balancing act. I don't think anybody wants to hurt your business, because we appreciate your business, but we also have the residents to think of.
Further comments?
Council, I'd like to comment if I can still do that. I've been here for 5 years, and this is the first year that we've taken the noise ordinance seriously. And I think a lot of that has to do with our new chief. I'd rather deal with a physical domestic than to deal with the complainant of Zorba's noise. And I'm being completely honest with you. And I know that the bifold doors need to be open because I think people would be passing out left and right. So yes, I think an answer would be a climate-controlled situation. To try and keep my personal, I have to in court and I want to here, but I'm here to keep the peace. And I think it's just a really tough deal for everybody down there when you have commercial property and public property. We have new owners coming in and existing owners of real estate there. And I literally have to be a liaison for you guys when I'm out there. And I've never been in here other than being sworn in. And so I really take the brunt of the anger out there. And you know what, I'm paid hourly, and that's what I do. However, this has been going on for 5 years. This is the first year that we're really documenting the issue. So I want to make that known, that this isn't just overnight. So I want to make that clear.
Okay. Further comments? So,
Well, before I vote, because I'm trying to find a compromise position, but maybe it isn't, so I directly ask all this. So what I hear Mr. Sherman saying is that you would rather, so if I'm gonna, I agree with Barb, I think our staff has tried to come up with a penalty situation that makes sense. I guess I'm not actually in favor of the closing at 1 o'clock for 3 nights. To me, I would try to find the compromise position of picking a couple of dates next year that you don't get to have the noise, the variance from 10 to 12. So I'd ask you directly, is that what you'd rather have, or would you rather close at 1 o'clock? Because I'm trying to find a position that I can vote for you.
I think, and everyone here knows that to grow a community intelligently and successfully, it's about a private public partnership. And if this is a negotiation, you're asking us what we would like. We would like patience. Because we understand that we're making changes, but now that over the course of 3 noise complaints over the course of a summer, and now suddenly we have to close at 1 o'clock for 4 nights, it seems a little egregious, and it doesn't seem like we're really approaching this from we understand you're business owners and you care deeply, and sometimes you need to make changes. We understand that. We're here to support you. We've been here, I think, long enough, and the business has been there long enough, and we have enough credibility to ask the council for that. I know that the council you're focused on Westlake Drive. How can you improve Westlake Drive? How can you add more lodging? How can you add more restaurants? How can you build a convention center? That's action. Action isn't always quiet. We understand the importance of it, and once again, we're continuing to change, but that's what we ask of you. We ask you for your patience, for us to adjust, and we're working diligently to adjust because we realize how important it is.
Jay?
I guess if it were up to me, I would sure love to see some sort of a warning in this situation. I think that, I understand that, but what kind of a warning do they have?
They have a warning.
The 3 phone calls?
Also known what's in the permit in the ordinance. They're not 15 years old.
So your point, Jay, is
I'd rather not pursue action at this point and have the staff write up some sort of a consequence program if next year, after the permits are being issued, if they're not being.
I think that's what we did this year. Because we had some of the complaints from last year, that's why the chief decided to keep better track of it, because there's been so many complaints in the last 5 years.
Other comments?
Cole, I like Zorbas, and I like anything that's going to be really productive for Detroit Lakes. You're great. We love having you here. I've been on council for 10 years. Do you know how many complaints I've heard about you guys? Every single summer, every year. That's 10 years worth of complaints that I hear about Zorbas extra noise. We gave in, we gave you the doors, keep them down. You've done a great job with that. This year it appears that in June, you did a great job, okay? We only had one complaint, and then August hit, and all of a sudden you guys like, whoa, what happened? So, I'm just saying that after 10 years, maybe it's time. You've known that noise ordinance. We go through it every year. You go through it. You know you've gotten complaints because you know you've had cops down there checking it out. Maybe we didn't take it this far in the last 10 years. But I have to agree that an ordinance doesn't do any good unless there's teeth someplace. And we've always kind of gone, oh gosh, but we hate to do that. We hate to punish our good business people. We hate to do that. We don't want to do that. Let's try to talk it out. Try to get something else going. I'm going to vote for the teeth this time. It's just a matter of what kind do you want. It's like asking a little kid, do you want a spanking or do you want to go to bed without supper?
Yeah.
Steve, did you have something you wanted to add? I've lost control of this whole program. You gotta jump in too.
I'm Steve Spaeth, and I'm a next door neighbors to Zorbas. And I will say that, yes, they are loud, but they have done much better this year than all the years of the 10, 12 years that Jane and I have lived there. They are working on it, and I think if you give them the opportunity without the, with recognizing in the resolution that they have, that this is a penalty enough for them being in front of you guys, and they would know then in any other complaints in the future that, there would be stiffer sanctions at this time. They try, and granted, when I called, because it's too loud, if I call Mr. Jansen, they react faster in what they can do. I know they try.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
I got one last comment, I'm sorry, but so Cole, here's where I'm at, is I would prefer not to vote for this motion, but you haven't given me anything. You haven't said, Bruce, yeah, maybe we could work something out for next year, blah, 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 blah. I know we're not supposed to be negotiating, but that's how I would prefer to look at it and say, is there some other sanction than closing at 1 o'clock? But if you're not gonna do that, then I'm kind of, we're battling that. I'm gonna have to vote for a motion that I don't particularly care for.
Now, just for a clarification, because this hasn't been brought up, they could still have a band there on a night when they don't have this particular noise exemption, as long as they comply with the regular noise ordinance. Am I correct on that?
You are correct, Your Honor, but you're talking about the regular noise ordinance means clearly audible 50 feet away from the building.
Right, that's what I just wanted to clarify. Anything else? We're gonna be here till it gets darker. There's a motion on the table, and that motion is just to review that because of these noise violations, Zorbas would have to stop selling alcohol at 1 a.m. And I wrote the dates down somewhere, but I can't find them here.
September 14th, 15th, and 16th.
Correct. Further discussion, otherwise we're gonna vote so we can move on with our business. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. The motion carries. So, thank you for coming, and is there anyone else in the audience that has an item you'd like moved up on the agenda? Like about 2 hours ago? What item?
3 hours ago?
What item is it?
Scoreboard.
Pardon?
Scoreboard.
High school.
5C, Your Honor. 5.
Without objection by the council, I'd like to move to agenda item 5C. I'm going to call on Bruce, who's going to fill in for Ron, who had to leave.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is consideration approving the installation of a new scoreboard at the Detroit Lakes High School football field without a conditional use permit. The situation in here is that originally this new scoreboard was supposed to come to the planning commission later this fall, because we have to hold a public hearing on it because of the size of it and where it's located. We needed to give notification to the neighbors. In the meantime, the folks that are putting the new scoreboard in want to try to put it up by homecoming, which I believe is a couple weeks away. And with the death of Mark Hagenhorn, for those of you who know, Mark was very actively involved with this. So the folks putting the Laker Booster Club would ask us to waive the requirements to go through the normal planning process and the conditional use permit and come directly to the council to ask for permission to put up the new scoreboard. We discussed this at Community Development Committee yesterday and agreed to that. The only question I would have for a city attorney, do we need to reference our decision to not hold the public notification? Do you need that at all in the motion?
I apologize in that I really haven't had a chance to look at this thing at all, so the short answer to that is that we're not requiring a conditional use permit for what reason? We
We're
decided
not
that we do.
requiring a conditional use permit because they're allowing this scoreboard to be installed as part of the existing school that's there and not requiring it or looking at it as an enlargement of the existing use.
Your Honor, I would move that we allow the installation of the scoreboard at the Lake High School field.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the installation of the new scoreboard at the Mulberg football field. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the,
I've got something.
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Looking at this, I know we went through this conditional use and zoning stuff 2 weeks ago, and now we're just kind of throwing stuff out the window. And you know, I love the school, I love the community, like I said before, but looking at the size of this, it's 20 by 30, and we're not gonna go through anything other than just rubber stamp it. I'm sorry, but this thing had to be on order for more than 2 weeks. It's not something they got in the back room.
Hasn't been ordered yet.
It's been ordered.
So how are you gonna get this in time to be able to?
Well, we don't know for sure that we are. It's not a guarantee right now. It's, you know, until we can make the call and say, boom, we're ready to go, you know. He said they can get them up in 3 weeks if everything goes fine. Now, we don't know that everything's gonna go fine, but we'd like to try. But it hasn't been ordered, it's sitting in a warehouse, and just to understand that part, this isn't a brand new scoreboard, this is a refurbished, basically they're refurbished roadside signs like you see out by Walmart there, that'll be put in place. So it's sitting in a warehouse somewhere.
And then continue down my road. I know we've had discussions for years, well before I've come on board, about electronic signs and everything else, so just by writing this down, I can't vote for it for those reasons of, you know.
It may be a little bit different than an electronic sign because it's not gonna be where it's visible from the street or from the road. You know, it's gonna be faced in towards the bleachers. It's not gonna be on anytime other than when there's events taking place out there. You know, it's not like we're putting up an advertising sign that's gonna run 24/7 along there. It'll be on when events are taking place. So really in that manner, it's not gonna be different than a scoreboard other than it's gonna have some different capabilities to play a video or do an instant replay or those kinds of things. But it's still essentially a scoreboard with some additional functionality.
Based on the diagram and stuff, it's facing, as most of you have obviously been to a ball game, it's facing at the angle toward the bleachers. Coming around the lake side, you got 50-foot tall pine trees already all around that area. On the other side, the top of the press box already is 34 feet on the other side, behind the bleachers already. The other fact is, except for when we get to right now at this time of the year, as far as when it gets dark, there's a whole bunch of events that are taking place. There's anywhere from track and field, which is typically not at night, all little kid football games, any kind of community events that we have down there. It'll be daylight, so here we've got a scoreboard that we're looking at that's gonna affect nobody in any neighborhood. So we got a few football games, varsity games that are typically over by 9:15 at night. It only gets dark, well, right now, starting to get from 8, at worst case, later in the season, you get dark at 8 o'clock. Game's over at 9:15, so you got literally an hour and 15 minutes of having a scoreboard that someone coming from way across might see. You know, and when you look over at who's over there, the people that are over there, is my mom and dad living at the Madison, and hopefully they can see the score and see a replay of some of my grandkids one day with great grandkids.
And the stadium lights will be on at that same time anyway, so you're not, creating a.
Okay. Further comments from the council? There's a motion and a second on the table. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The motion carries. And I don't think there's anyone else in the audience that has an item, so we'll go back to.
Thanks for sticking around.
Thank you.
We won't be ready to come.
This time I'll adjourn the regular meeting and call to order a public hearing to receive public comments on the proposed vacation of the utility easement between lots 1 and 2 of Block 2 of the North Industrial Park. Larry?
This is the pet care systems. Several years ago, they built a building and it straddled the property lines, which had utility easements on the plat, and so apparently they're refinancing their property and the bank wants them to take these easements, and so we're recommending that we vacate the utility easements.
And I know there's no one in the audience that wants to speak to the issue, so the public hearing is closed.
So, Mayor, I'll make a motion, and if you want to keep the meeting moving, don't ask for the explanation. I was ready to make the motion. I move that we vacate the utility easement between lots 1 and 2, Block 2 of the North Industrial Park.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to vacate the utility easement. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I'll call to order a public hearing to receive public comment on a nuisance at 1513 Bowling Avenue. Priscilla? Getting stiff sitting back there?
A little bit. How about you guys?
Just hug me, good.
Don't mind the stuff.
Hello. So the first nuisance is 513 Bowling Avenue. They have various items of garbage alongside the home. They have moved the Suburban with the mattress on top, which is the first image in July. And as of August 31st, they still have the scaffolding and the garbage. Staff recommendation is to declare the property a nuisance, order the nuisance abated, and assess the cost of the abatement to the property.
Okay, and I know there's no one in the audience, so the public hearing is closed. What are your wishes?
Your Honor, the Community Development Committee recommends that we legally abate the nuisance, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to abate the nuisance at 1513 Bowling Avenue. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And those motions, I assume, are always going to include the assessing costs.
Yes. And I'll also call to order a public hearing to receive public comments on nuisance at 1036 West Avenue.
1036 West Avenue, the photos that are on your board were taken May 16th, June 28th, and August 31st. No progress has been made to clean up the violations, and city recommendation is to declare the property a nuisance, or the nuisance abated, and assess the cost of the abatement to the property.
Okay, and that public hearing is closed. What are your wishes?
Your Honor, the Community Development Committee recommends that we immediately abate the nuisance and assess the cost at 1036 West Avenue. And I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to abate the nuisance at 1036 West Avenue. Discussion, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. At this time, I'll call to order a public hearing to receive public comments on nuisance at 912 Rossman Avenue. Priscilla?
This property is well hidden by vegetation during the summer, but in the spring you can see there's garbage in the backyard. There's a temporary storage tent in the back, a boat, a truck, piles of garbage in the front, behind that lilac hedge. In that aerial shot, it's in the top right corner of the photo. It seems that this has been a ongoing issue because it's been piled up over the years. The person that did call and complain about it said pretty much that it is an ongoing issue. Staff recommendation is to declare the property a nuisance, order it abated, and assess the cost of the abatement to the property.
Okay, that public hearing is closed.
Your Honor, the Community Development Committee recommends that we immediately abate the nuisance at 912 Rossman Avenue and assess the cost, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to abate the nuisance at 912 Rossman Avenue. Discussion, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. This time I'll call to order a public hearing to receive public comments on the nuisance at 202 Grant Street West.
This property is very similar in the ongoing issue. The house was removed, the junk behind it is still there. The pile of tires has been removed, but there are still additional items. The grass had been mowed. I'm not sure if the homeowner did it or if the city did it, but there are still piles of junk. The trailer, as you can see clearly in this photo, and I'm not sure what that pile is, but it's not supposed to be there. City staff recommends to declare the property a nuisance, order it abated, and assess the costs to the property.
Okay, that public hearing is closed.
Your Honor, the Community Development Committee has recommends that we immediately abate the nuisance at 202 Grant Street West and assess the cost, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to abate the nuisance at 202 Grant Street West. Discussion, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Bruce, why don't you just continue on?
Your Honor, the item A is consideration of resolution amending the conditional use permit to allow 22 parking spaces at 1210 Washington Avenue, Sanford Health. Community Development Committee recommends that we grant the conditional use permit to November 1st, 2018. That was our recommendation, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to amend the conditional use permit to allow 22 parking spots at 1210 Washington Avenue for Sanford Health until November 1 of 2018. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
B is consideration of setting the resolution, or consideration of resolution setting a public hearing for October 10th on the vacation of utility easement at Stonebrook Villa, second edition, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to set a public hearing for October 10th on the proposed vacation of the utility easement in Stonebrook Villa, second edition. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
That's all, Your Honor.
Okay, we're in Public Works, Chairman Jay.
Item A was just for discussion. We had a discussion regarding the Ojibwe rally, and there were a few safety concerns, and staff will be following up. No action necessary.
Okay.
Item B, we discussed the Americans with Disability Act transition plan. There will be a public hearing on September 8th at 2 o'clock. No action necessary.
October 8th.
October, hello, what am I doing? September 28th at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Can't even read my own writing. That's not a good sign. Item C, we had a discussion regarding on-street parking. Mr. Remen handed out a new policy for parking, and council will review and come back to discuss at a later date for the parking policy.
I like the way you're moving along.
Item D, let's see here, consideration of the request from J Stone Enterprises to place time parking signs at 214 Front Street. We took a look at that. We moved to grant a 2-hour parking limit at 214 Front Street and recommends changing all timed Front Street signs to 2-hour parking only. And so the Public Works had a chance to look at that and recommends approval, and I so move.
Seconded.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to change the parking restrictions and the signs on both sides of Front Street in that block.
Just wherever there's half-an-hour parking.
Wherever there's half an hour, it'll now be 2 hours. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
We're gonna like this one. Items E and F have been removed. Item G, let's see, your consideration to approve the Kent Freeman Sports Arena lease agreement with the Detroit Lakes Public Schools, and I think I could put item H together with that. Consideration to approving the Kent Freeman Sports Arena lease agreement with the Detroit Lakes Youth Hockey Association. There's a couple of changes. Corrections on the dates to October 16th, 2017 to March 4th, 2018, and October 15th, 2018 to March 3rd, 2019. The Public Works Department recommends approval, and I so move.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the Kent Freeman Sports Arena lease agreement with the Detroit Lakes Public Schools and also the lease agreement with the Detroit Lakes Youth Hockey Association. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item I has been removed, and that is all.
Okay, we'll move to the Finance Committee agenda. Chairman Renner.
Thank you, Your Honor. First item on the agenda A is the food pantry lease. The Finance Committee reviewed the food pantry lease agreement, which is in your packets. Recommended approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the food pantry lease agreement. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you. Item B is approving the American Legion campground rates. The Finance Committee reviewed the proposed rates, recommended approval. They're in your packet, and I so move.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the American Legion Campground 2018 rates. Discussion on the motion.
I just have a quick question, Dan. Do you know when our contract on that with Legion is, when is that up?
I don't know. I'll have to refer to city staff on that one. And we're getting some head scratching, so I don't know.
Top of my head, I don't remember.
Somebody can let me know later. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Yeah.
Let's see here, where were we? We had a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item C is a resolution which will increase the retirement benefits for the Detroit Lakes Fire Department Relief Association. There is a motion in your packets. What we're looking at here is a $600 per year increase rather than a January 1st effective date. Though we looked at this, and to be consistent with past years, are recommending an April 1st, 2018 effective date for this increase. That'll increase that annual benefit level to $6,850. And the Finance Committee reviewed this, recommended approval, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to amend the Detroit Lakes Fire Department Relief Association bylaws to increase the retirement benefits. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, I have two motions for item D, Your Honor. What we did here was the Finance Committee formed it as the Budget Committee, added additional council members as per public meeting laws, and what we did was re-reviewed the city budget line by line item over 6 meetings. After much discussion, we recommend approval of preliminary annual budget for the city of Detroit Lakes for calendar year 2018 of $24,592,823, and that the $5,114,009 be levied upon the taxable property in the city of Detroit Lakes for the current year, collectible in 2018. I move approval of these recommendations made by the Budget Committee.
Do we need to add the setting of the hearing for?
That'll be my second motion, Your
okay.
Honor. Thank you.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to establish the preliminary budget and tax levy collected in 2018. I'm not gonna probably ask Pam to go through this at this time.
Oh, please.
Well, in any case, Your Honor, there is a more detailed list of how the budget will be spent in the levy in your packets. Okay.
All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And then we need to establish a public hearing for this. The committee further recommended that the council designate Tuesday, December 12th, 2017 at 6:01 PM as the time for the truth and taxation hearing on the 2018 budget and proposed levy, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded that we designate December 12th, 2017, beginning at 6:01 PM for the public comment on the budget and proposed levy. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And that's all I have, Your Honor.
We'll go, Dan, you're gonna take the public safety, right?
Yeah, I'll go quick.
All right.
We covered A, so we're gonna go right on to B. Discussion regarding the BKV facility assessment. Basically, Alderman Zeman, Bulkey, and the police chief and the city administrator, me, we went for a tour of various facilities. We toured the second level of the jail building here in town. We also went to Burgess Falls and Alexandria and toured their new facilities. They're within 5 years old. We are planning to do a September 27th workshop with BKV, so we can have a little bit more input in terms of how we're gonna move forward on this project, if we do, if that's something that works out for you guys.
But no action.
No action.
Okay.
September 27th, you mean like with the council members?
Yes.
What was the date? September.
Wednesday, September 27th,
Do we have a time?
probably like 5:30.
And can we get information ahead of time?
Yeah, it'll just be the final draft of the BKV facility report.
And you'll send out a notice, so we'll all know about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Dan?
That works.
I've got nothing.
Okay, so we go to the liquor gambling control. Jamie?
Item B is consideration of the request from Lakes Area Mountain Bike Alliance and Trails for sponsorship for the Take a Kid Mountain Biking Day. We took no action on this item. We just don't think it falls really within our normal donation parameters, I would say.
Anything else?
No.
All right. We do have one Public Utilities Commission item, and that's to give consideration to a resolution approving the application to the Minnesota Public Facilities Authority for a loan from the Clean Water Revolving Fund. Madeline, will you take that item, please?
Sure. We need to make a motion that we are going to approve the application to the Minnesota Public Facilities Authority for the loan, approximately up to $20 million from the Clean Water Revolving Fund. This is going to pay for our new treatment plant.
Okay.
So I make that motion.
Okay, so motion's been made and seconded to approve the application to the Minnesota Public Facilities Authority for a loan from the Clean Water Revolving Fund for the new wastewater treatment facility. Discussion on the motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I also have one other thing from the
Okay.
Public Utilities
All right.
Commission. At the August 22nd Minnesota Municipal Utilities Association Summer Conference, Roger Molson was awarded the Distinguished Service Award from MMUA. Roger was presented this award for his many years of work with the Job Training and Safety Committee, working to bring high-quality educational programs to line workers across Minnesota. Roger has been instrumental in providing high-level training at the overhead and underground schools in Marshall and worked on field design and construction for the APPA Line Workers Rodeo in 2016 at Shakopee, Minnesota. We want to congratulate Roger on his outstanding achievements, and it's wonderful to know Detroit Lakes has such great staff people.
Good, nicely done. Okay, I've got some recommendations for some advisory boards and commissions. Steve Daggett is decided not to continue on the DLCCC board, and I'd like to recommend it to the council that Peter Jacobson be appointed to the Detroit Lakes Community and Cultural Center Board.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded that we appoint Peter Jacobson to the Community Center Board. Discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Can I lump all these together? Do you mind? Can I make, I'll shorten this up. I want to reappoint John Wood to the Library Board. I want to appoint Julie Berg, who's a longtime employee of BTD, to the Police Civil Service Commission. I want to reappoint Mark Green to the Airport Commission. I want to reappoint Joyce Stuffney to the HRA Board. I want to reappoint Dan Josephson and Madeline Suki to the Detroit Mountain Recreation Area Board. We can do that in one motion if you so desire.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve those recommendations. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We'll have to come back and revisit the Airport Commission situation. Do we have a special meeting coming up for anything in September that you can think of?
That work session, we could make that a special council meeting, have some action items beforehand.
I'll probably ask you to include these two appointments on that agenda.
Sure.
I haven't had a chance to talk to Gary Nansen on the Detroit Mountain Board, but I will do that before next month. There are several announcements here that you could all read. Read them. Is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up? I would not. Anyone on the council? Bruce? Barb? Jay?
No, sir.
Jamie? Dan? Madeline? Dan? The business of council has come to a conclusion. The meeting's adjourned.
Wow.
The league regional meeting is in October, so let us know if you want to know what the carpool is.
Okay.
I'm sure this is absolute.
Available.